So moving on with the next news. So the next news is about that ISRO is getting up for its role in 2021, and 20. We all know that in 2020, for 2022, ISRO is getting up its role, and we all know that in 2021, the ISRO many work were not done due to this pandemic and many things, and in 2022, major work will be done. That will be a man-made mission in space, that is Gaganyaan. Gaganyaan will be launched in this 2021 itself, sorry, 2022 itself, and there are many this Earth observation satellite, that is EOS, will be launched. 4, 6, and EOS 2 will also be launched, and they all will be board on PSLV, that is Polar Satellite Launch Vehicle. And also this EOS 2, the unique thing about is this, it will be on a small satellite launch vehicle, SSLV. And there is this IS Rojas, this for Gaganyaan test flight will also be done. For Gaganyaan test flight will be done, and also the for crew escape system and launch of first unmanned mission will be done in 2022 itself. So it's look like a promising year for ISRO. So knowing about some facts about the ISRO. So in the Indian Space Research Organization is a space agency, and it is under the Department of Space. There is this separate department which is Department of Space, and ISRO his quarter, we all know, that is in Bangalore. And ISRO was initiated by Vikram Sarabhai, and he was the founding father of this Indian space program, and it happened during 1960s. 1960s it happened, and Dr. K. Sivan is the ISRO chairman right now. Dr. K. Sivan is the ISRO chairman right now, and yeah, and the thing is that ISRO's vision is to harness space technology, and it basically vision is to harness space technology for national development. So space technology for national development. So this is the basic goal of ISRO, and also this should be done while pursuing research and planetary exploration. And basically there are three elements in ISRO program. First one is satellite launching, satellite for communication and remote sensing, and second is space transportation. We all know that Gaganyaan should be happening now, right now. That is first man-made mission of India, uh, to first mission will a man will be sent into space. And also the third thing about ISRO is that application programs, developing different application programs for research purpose and also for space exploration. So these are the three things, three pillars of ISRO. That first is satellite, second is space transportation, and third is application programs. So moving on, see, there is this now, a thing is happening, and defense ministry has opened a private partnership with ISRO also. So this private partnership, although ISRO is the best performing PSU, there are some failures also, like failure of second moon mission. We all know, we have all seen those footage in our television channels. And Chandrayaan 2 was unable to make a soft landing on moon's south polar region. And also these failures are normal and negligible, as a space is not easy, we all know. But private sector involvement could not only reduce such failure, but would also help in highlight high technology. So what are different benefits of ISRO and private partnership? So first benefit will be, see, these all kind of things will be important for our science and technology, and while answering the mains, because when we are giving the science and technology part of mains, we just don't have to put the technical stuff, we have to put our current knowledge of current affairs also, and also our tactical knowledge, that how we are seeing a thing, how we are seeing a 360-degree aspect of thing. Suppose a question is asked about ISRO, so we can simply add this point, that private partnership of ISRO can be a good thing or a bad thing depending on our points. So the first thing which ISRO and private partnership will be a good thing about, that it will give a greater pool of resources For example, public resources like land, labor, capital are limited, and private sector participation will open new pool of resources and talent, and it will bring more funding also, and experienced guy will come on, and space exploration will see a new high. And also this human capital part is also there when there is this private partnership, because restricting space activities to ISRO limits proper utilization of talent. And suppose a very high intellectual guy of very high scientific caliber is there, but he is working on some private firm. But ISRO is a government firm, so we cannot utilize his talent. So human capital restriction will be avoided, and this will be definitely a much boost for Indian space agencies. And also there is this also more time for ISRO will come, because today every space mission is done by ISRO in India, whether it's communication satellite or weather monitoring satellite. So with increased role of private player, ISRO can concentrate more on another innovation like reusable PSLV. We all know Tesla now they are using reusable rockets, so ISRO can also work on that. Cryogenic rockets are there, so this kind of thing will ISRO work on that. And also we all know that the technological advancement will increase, because private partnership will learn, and their technology will collab with government technology, ISRO technology, so their advancement would be there. And also the risk would be shared by private and government both, because we all know this is a risky business, the whole space industry. So the risk would be shared by both government and private. And also there is this commercial demand, because there is this need to enhance internet connectivity for masses, and also which is another demand pull factor for increased commercial interest in space. And asteroid mining is also another potential. So this kind of commercial demand will also be fulfilled. And one of the most important thing concerned with India is that it will generate employment, and this will lead to creation of new jobs in the high skilled labor market and in the private space industry. And the like we have seen Indians going to NASA, and Indian going to European or Union space agency. So brain drain would also be reduced, and it will give employment to the high skilled industries. And moving on with the next news, so there is this unrest happening with at Sudan, and Sudan PM Hamdok resigns amid crackdown on protester. And more than 2 months after a coup, and following another deadly crackdown on protester, this happened. And Sudan has been gone undergoing a fragile journey towards civilian rule since 2019. It is happening. And when the autocrat Omar al-Bashir was removed, Sudan was plunged into turmoil when military leader Abdul Fattah al-Burhan has launched his coup on 25th and detained Mr. Hancock. So three persons are important here: Umar al-Bashir, General Abdul Fattah, General Abdul Fattah, and this Sudan PM Hamdok, currently PM, who resigned. So these three, first, second, and this third one is important when it's come to Sudan. We don't have to remember just these names, but as things are looking, that we have to see these kind of things in our daily current affairs time to time. We have to know a little things about Sudan also. So where this is Sudan basically located. So Sudan, we all know, is a Eastern Africa country, and basically a Northeast Africa country, and it is to share a border with Red Sea also. And Red Sea is strategically very important and kind of connect Mediterranean Sea to rest of the world. And also it is close to Egypt, Libya, Chad, and also Ethiopia. And one more thing which is it is close to Horn of Africa, because for trade purpose this Horn of Africa is mm, for this Horn of Africa is very crucial when trades are concerned. So this is the basic geographical location of Sudan. And what is the Sudan relationship with different kind of release its neighbor. So Sudan is a volatile region, and it border Red Sea, Sahel, and Horn of Africa. And most of the neighbors, including Ethiopia, Chad, and Sudan, South Sudan have been affected by political appeal of Sudan also, and since late 2020, conflicts in Ethiopia Tigray region has pushed tens of thousands of refugees into Sudan. So we all know that Ethiopia is here, so refugee have come from Ethiopia to Sudan also, and also Sudan is pushing with Egypt also, and for a binding deal for the preparation of a giant hydropower, because we all know Nile come across here and also goes to Sudan. So hydropower is there. So Sudan is working with Egypt also, and talks have stalled Ethiopia and started filling the reservoir behind the dam. So this is reservoir is happening. So Sudan says that it could put its citizen dam and water facility at risk. So there is this water issue happening between Egypt, Sudan, and Ethiopia. So whenever we are discussing Sudan, we have to mention that there is this reservoir Sudan is going to have build up, and this will create an issue in Egypt and Ethiopia. So this was about Sudan, and moving on with the next news. The next news is about India's relationship with Israel, because currently an announcement was made by our Commerce and Industries Minister Piyush Goyal that on the announcement coincide with the 13th anniversary of establishment of diplomatic ties between India and Israel, and both sides are currently in talks to mark the occasion with high visits and new agreements. And Mr. Goyal informed that bilateral free trades between UK, Australia, United Arab Emirates, and Canada is also happening with India. These kind of countries are also in talks with India for a trade agreement. So, and also we are talking with Israel for a trade agreement. So whenever Israel is concerned, there are different economic aspects and investment aspect relating to Israel, because the bilateral merchandise trade is about $5, sorry, not $5, $5 billion, and the export from India is about $3.6 billion, and the import from Israel is about $1.96 billion. This is export and this is import, and the diamond trade constitute more than 30%, 33% of this economic relationship between India and Israel. So whenever India Israel economic relationship is concerned, diamond business is a core of this kind of relationship. And India is Israel's third largest partner in Asia after China and Hong Kong. So we can see how much importance India is of Israel. And in recent years, bilateral trade had diversified to include several sectors like pharmaceutical, agriculture, IT, telecom, homeland security, everything. And also major exports from India to Israel covers metals, stones, and chemical products like that. And also there's this investment part is also there between India and Israel, and the major investment from Israel to India include renewable energy like solar cell and all that, and telecom industries and real estate also. Mm, because we have all seen that Trump towers are not now being made in India, and Trump has this huge kind of connection with Israeli lobby. So these all things are connected with each other. And also in investment, this R&D sector of different business unit are also in centers of are there in Israel. So the extent of Israel's investment is India is not available, as most of these are routed via third countries like Singapore or USA. As I have said that in case of Trump Tower, we all know. So Singapore or USA, through routing through third country, Israeli investment is reaching India. And also India's investment in Israel are basically in deep irrigation technique, pharmaceutical, wastewater, these kind of things are there. And also India has a tie with Israel over agriculture, because there are like a 3 year plan work plan was made between India and Israel, and a comprehensive work plan was signed, and between both countries agricultural ministry. So basically basically it kind of provide a kind of technical and research and this kind of development thing in agriculture. So moving on with the news. So what are the different areas of concern when it comes to India-Israel relationship? So first concern is that bilateral trade and investment are still below potential, because I said that only $5 billion are happening, but giving the kind of market India has, this is still a very low point and only confined to diamond. So this is also a low point. And free technical FTA, that is free trade agreement, are still not signed. So this kind of bilateral trade concerns are there. And also there is this emerging fissure in Western Asian region, because Israel and Saudi Arabia coming close with each other, and this is basically done to stop the rise of Iran, and it will be tough for India to balance the relationship. So this is the thing. And also there is because Saudi Arabia and Israel are coming, so this kind of put India into trouble water. And also human rights violation are there, huge human rights violation Israel is doing on Palestinian. And they are cutting their water supply, food supply, they are burning their homes. So these kind of things are there. And also there is this connectivity between these two countries that is still poor, and because only human to human connectivities are there. And major government initiatives are still not done, which should be done at because we have high hopes from this FTA, and hoping that this will increase our relationship. And also Israel is having close ties with China, because I have said already India is on the third list of Israel trade partnership, after China and Hong Kong. So it has ensured that a strategic element prevailed earlier has reduced, but China is attracted to Israel technology sector, and Israel welcome China investment. So these kind of things are a concern for India, because China is there. So these kind of things should be stopped. If Israel is Israel wants a good relationship with India. So these are all the things for today. So thank you for all. See you tomorrow, and do subscribe to our Telegram and YouTube channel. Thank you. Thank you so much.